Greetings and welcome to ValorTube.com. My name is Paul Lear and I am your host of This Week in Prophecy. I'd like to welcome everyone to ValorTube.com. Hey, this is a great place. A little editorial comment before we get going. This is a great place to come for those of you who are not interested in being censored by big tech, being told what you can say, can't say, what you can see, not see. I would highly recommend you guys take a stop by valortube.com. Stay a while. On a sidebar, my channel, Paul the Poke, on YouTube, I had some commentators censored, and they essentially eliminated commentary on posts, edited out, took away. Just people's thoughts and comments. Now, granted, some people, and this is part of it that comes with free speech. You got people calling each other names. Well, YouTube will have none of that. This does not comply with our community guidelines and standards. So they just removed them and took all that stuff away. So not here, not at ValorTube. Highly recommend you check out ValorTube. And I'm an original content provider here at valortube.com. And so I welcome everybody to This Week in Prophecy. And we're going to start this week in Singapore. And you're like, well, what does Singapore have to do with anything? Well, Defense Minister Gantz of Israel held covert security meetings in Singapore. And this is per the Times of Israel. I love how the press. So the whole thing started last week. Hey, Defense Minister Gantz is going to go on a little trip, but we're not telling you where. Well, he went on the trip, he came back, and now it was said that he went to Singapore. And they say it had to do, which Singapore, island nation, is a significant importer of Israeli goods, including arms. Now, and the rumor is that this was withheld because Singapore didn't want anybody talking about it, that we had somebody from Israel coming over. Okay, fine, whatever. Speculation here on my part. I find it very interesting. We'll look down here at Singapore. You see Singapore is a little island nation. Well, what is to the north of Singapore? Malaysia. Malaysia has been in the news recently in regards to the Abraham Accords. They are rumored to be a potential country to join the Abraham Accords in the circle of peace with Israel. Also, I've seen in some publications, not quite as often, Indonesia, I think Indonesia has the greatest amount of Muslims in their country, more Muslim population in any country in the world in Indonesia. I've heard Indonesia may be rumored to join the circle of peace in the Abraham Accords. So interesting stuff. He just spent 5 days there talking about whatever, and then he ended up in the East Bank talking about settlements, and that's when he kind of came out from hiding and was back in the public eye when he was in the East Bank. That's Defense Minister Gantz of Israel, is when he made his public reappearance from Singapore. My guess is he was out hobnobbing around and they were discussing peace. Speculation on my part, fully admitted. So, at any rate, we'll zero back in on the Persian Gulf, or not the Persian Gulf, but the Middle East and the Arabian Peninsula. Persian Gulf's right here. Saudi Arabia expels Lebanese ambassador to Riyadh, and they recalled their ambassador from Beirut. And this is something that happened over some comments. Big shout out here to Checkmate. Checkmate forwarded me this article, and I read this, and then, of course, the deal has to do with Lebanese information Information Minister George Kordahi made some comments, said that Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis were defending themselves and described the years-long war in Yemen as futile. It's like, so he clearly took the side of the Houthis. And the Houthis are down here. Yemen's been in civil war. The Houthis are backed by Iran. So it's essentially a shot of saying, hey, Lebanon supports Iranian proxy, the Houthis, in the conflict down in Yemen. Now, the Saudis also have their support group, which they are pushing back on the Iranian proxy Houthis as well. Now, this of course sparked, so the Saudis were the first to make mention of this, and then what followed is then Kuwait decided to expel Lebanese ambassadors and pull their ambassador from Lebanon. Kuwait was joined by Bahrain, who's in the Abraham Accords. And also the same thing happened with the United Arab Emirates, who also happens to be in the Abraham Accords. So it would appear that, the Saudis took the lead in regards to, looking to pull their ambassador from Lebanon and then expel their Lebanese ambassador from Saudi Arabia. Makes you wonder, too, if at some point, again, lots of talk about the Saudis joining the Abraham Accords and the Circle of Peace. So, a little drama, a little political theater taking place. We'll see what comes of it. Just something to watch. To me, the most intriguing thing are the countries who are aligned with the Saudis. They also happen to be very pro-Israel and friendly with Israel, and that's the issue. All these countries are very concerned about a nuclear Iran and having to defend themselves from a nuclear Iran. So, essentially lines are being drawn, and some of these Arab countries are decided, you know what, we're probably better off with Israel, banding together with Israel against Iran to protect ourselves. And that's what it boils down to. It's really not any more complicated than that. So we're going to jump from there. Now, this is kind of one of the, master of the obvious signs. And this is the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24. As he, that'd be Jesus, said on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" And Jesus answered them, "See that no one leads you astray, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray." Well, we got plenty of people walking around thinking they're the Messiah right now. We haven't had one in a while, but when he rears his head, we'll probably inform you guys of that. But what we really want to take a look at, verse 6 moving forward, "And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet." And we are definitely in a time of wars and rumors of wars. "For nation will rise against nation." I mean, that's what we just talked about in regards to the Saudis and the Lebanese, and kingdom against kingdom. So you have factions of countries, or groups of countries banding together against other groups of countries. And there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these things are but the beginning of birth pains. So we're watching this happen. This is the beginning. These are the conditions that Christ describes prior to the beginning of birth pains. So we're watching these things happen. And again, the idea is just the proliferation of weaponry, advanced weaponry, destructive military hardware that's taking place around the planet. And let's take a look at India. India test launches nuclear capable missile amid tensions with China. India on Wednesday conducted a test launch of its Agni-5 missile, a nuclear-capable weapon whose 3,125-mile range is sufficient to hit any target in China. And according to the Indian government, the test missile landed with a very high degree of accuracy in the Bay of Bengal. So, we'll pull out here. And again, we go back to Southeast Asia. And so they're saying they can reach anywhere in China. China, of course, isn't going to like this. And they fired it somewhere out here into the ocean, in the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean. So, again, and I still think at some point, I think we will see. We're still waiting on the 10 Nation Federation. And the thing that makes the most sense to me at this point, I can clearly be wrong about this, and this would be one of these areas where I would encourage you to do your own homework and make your own decisions based on what you think the scripture says and measure it against scripture. But scripture talks about at some point a 10 nation group, a 10 nation federation will come together. And I'm of the opinion, for now, I can have my mind changed. What is currently the G7, which the United States is part of, Canada, England, Germany, Italy, Japan, France, and then you throw in three more, which would include, in my estimation, India, South Korea, and Australia. And we already see shades of this starting to take place with the United Kingdom, the United States, and Australia banding together against China. And there's a clear shift in thinking, in our military thinking, toward Southeast Asia. And just look at how we had handled Iran in the Middle East. We had resources in Iran. We had stuff in Pakistan, Afghanistan. We have stuff in Iraq, here on the Syrian border. We have stuff in Qatar, UAE. So we effectively have and still do have elements of Iran being surrounded. And I suspect, we'll do the same thing with China. And that's why I think India will come on board that way. China has somebody they got to worry about on their western front, southwestern front. We've moved all kinds of resources. I've even heard we got some stuff moving into Taiwan at this point. Troops in Taiwan. We have resources in South Korea. We have resources in Japan. We're starting to get more stuff down in and around Australia. And, again, you throw in India, South Korea, Australia, and then you have a makeshift wall around China under the guise of the protection of Taiwan is the idea. And Biden came out this week and said, we will defend Taiwan. We will not allow China to invade Taiwan. But the point being is at some point in the future, there will be a 10-nation beast, if you will. Revelation talks about it. And then you have Daniel's statue with iron and clay toes, 10 iron and clay toes. So we're waiting on that 10-nation group to be formally announced on the scene. And again, the thing that makes the most sense at this point, I can have my mind changed, maybe something else. The G7 plus India, Australia, and South Korea. It makes sense. We'll see what happens. But again, the idea, wars, rumors of war, India, nuclear missile capabilities, hit any place in China. Spokesperson for the Indian Defense Ministry said the Agni-5 is capable of neutralizing targets threatening India's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Wonder who that's aimed at. China, I'm sure, is not happy about it. I've not seen anything in the press. We got some people from the Chinese soldiers from the People's Liberation Army. That makes you feel good, don't you? Liberators, China. was from last year. Back on wars and rumors of wars, we're going to head back to the Arabian Peninsula. So all kinds of stuff. I mean, a lot of it this week has just been chest thumping, saber rattling. Hey, look at us. And this was probably done out in the Persian Gulf. I did not see the actual location of this. This was kind of interesting. I suppose if I dig a little deeper, I could probably find it. But the point being is that the United States and the Saudis, and this is from the Ministry of Defense in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We'll check this out. This, again, Ministry of Defense. Highly recommend people watching this. Now, the sound's not going to come through here. I don't have that technical capability, or I probably do. I just don't know how to do it. But you need to listen to this. And kudos. Now, they probably had some assistance from the United States, but would really like to give a shout out to the Saudis. They have upped their propaganda game. They've got some very scary music with this. It sounds very intimidating. And, one thing I would offer the Saudis, I would put a fresh coat of paint on some of these ships, make things look a little cleaner, neater, give you a much better, project a much better image. And this was called Indigo Defender 21 is what this joint exercise between the Saudis and the United States, and I think the Navy was involved. I saw where the Marines were involved as well in this exercise. But very, very good music, very serious, and I think even the Marines put up a little something. It was shorter, but nonetheless, you have a couple of groups getting together, projecting a little strength, clearly aimed at the Iranians, and just letting them know we're still here. But again, wars and rumors of wars, kind of the theme of the week, and everybody here recently has been coming out with war games. I mean, my gosh, and I think we got later into December. I think we're going to have Russia, China, and Iran are going to get together in the Persian Gulf and have their war games. So that'll be fun. Let's get get the three amigos there together. And you got, 2/3 of the crew that's at some point going to want to go invade Israel from the north. You got Iran and Russia getting together, and let's invite China. Again, wars, rumors of wars. I mean, that to me is one of the most obvious signs of Christ coming, is that saber rattling, chest thumping all over the place. Turkey's wargaming, Russia's wargaming, Saudis, Iranians. I think Israel this weekend too had an Air Force exercise with multiple countries involved, with a bunch of Air Force fighter pilots, including some people from the UAE, and they even, I want to say, put like a joint patch on each other's uniforms, indicating solidarity. So, I mean, did you ever think you would see an Arab country wearing a Star of David on the uniform? It happened. But they all met in Israel this week as well. So lots of wargaming taking place around the planet. And I don't know where this was. We're going to close with this. President Biden. So we'll close with this. And this is out of RT. You got to love this. Their observation. By the way, Twitter lets you know that this is Russia state-affiliated media. Very green, quotes RT. Biden's massive 85-car motorcade ahead of the climate summit leaves critics stunned. Look at all the fossil fuels being burned for the protection of Joe Biden. Oh, my. So, Relatively speaking, this week, a somewhat quiet week, other than a secret trip, some posturing over, ambassadors throughout the Middle East based on some Lebanese comments. And then again, the proliferation of destructive weaponry, nuclear missiles in this case, coming out of India. So appreciate you guys following along. If you enjoy this, please tell other people about ballardtube.com. Freedom of speech. We're not censoring. There's nothing being censored there, so you'll be able to say what you want to say. We just don't need to be cutting down and censoring other people's ideas just because we disagree with them. It's not a good place to head. That's kind of part of it. At any rate, I'd like to thank everybody for stopping in, and we'll catch you next week on This Week in Prophecy. Take care. Have a great week. Bye.